And welcome back, and we're moving into our second segment, the conversations when we're off here. I love it. We're moving into our second segment, and we're about to we're about to do a book launch right here on set as we speak. Actually, Keron's Kite. To tell us more about it, we actually have the author, and this is none other than Harold Young. Harold, it's so nice to see you, and welcome. Good morning.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastically well.
Fantastically well.
Yes,
I
exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
So, a book launch and Keron's Kite book. Before we get into it, tell us about yourself. Where you from? You know, what got you into this?
Well, I grew up right here in Belize City. I went to All Saints. I went to St. John's College, sixth form, high school and sixth form. And then I went off to university. I was a lawyer for a while, and then
For a while?
for a few years. For a few years. And then I went to the States and worked in public health for about 18 years.
Wow.
And then I went back to school and did my PhD in political science. And so I'm a professor now at a university in Tennessee.
Wow.
Quite a range.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Law, social work, health communications.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Been
now
long
a
way.
teacher.
And now I'm a professor.
Professor,
yes.
yes.
A professor, yes.
Yes.
Sweet.
And
Yeah.
so we finally found the area that we love the most.
For now.
Are you be a doctor somewhere? An astronaut
For
someday?
now.
No, now
now.
you're an author of children's books.
Children's books, yes,
Yeah.
yes. With,
But what prompted you into wanting to even become an author for a children's book? What?
well, it was really unexpected. It was really unexpected. I really didn't think about it at all before. My inspiration was actually here in Belize. I was here on holiday last summer for the entire summer. I always come and spend the entire summer when I can, and Christmas holidays. And I was having lunch and talking to some friends of mine, and they one of the friends made a comment, and I was like, "You should write a book about that."
Yeah.
And then he said, "Sure." Everybody always says "sure" when you say that, right? And then I got home tonight. I said, "You know what? That idea is such a good idea that I'm going to write a book." And so I put it in the context of kite flying.
Yeah.
His comment had nothing to do with kite flying,
Yeah.
but I put it in context of kite flying because that's something I really liked as a child. I used to build kites and fly them a lot. So I put it in the context of kite flying.
Wow. This-
So the context is kite flying, which
Right.
means there is a message that you're trying to deliver through the book.
Yes.
And that is?
So the message is, don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today, which is kind of cliche. It sounds a little cliche, but in this case, it's this kid, Keron, who loves kites, and his older brother has a kite, and some of his friends have kites, and he doesn't have one. And he wants them to, fly with him, but they won't, or not that they won't, but they don't do it when he wants to.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to build his own kite. So he does, and he is amazed that he was able to do it, and he gets up really early one morning and flies his kite, and it was in March with all the beautiful winds.
Sweet.
And yeah,
I hope you had a good loop.
yeah. Well, we all hope that when we fly kites.
So, Harold, there's a bigger story here, and I think that we need to explore that a bit further. So, you're Belizean living abroad. You come back home for the
All
summer.
the
You're
time.
very accomplished in terms of your professional career.
Right, I try.
And you have conversations with your old classmates, and you want to write a book about seizing the day, essentially.
Yes.
What did you see, or what
Well-
did you hear that made you think that this is a message that children of Belize need to understand?
Well, personally, it was some revelation for me. I didn't seize the day many days in my life.
Wow.
All
In your 4 careers,
Yes.
you didn't seize the day.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, or I kept seizing wrong days or something. I don't know. But I think for young people, they get caught up in videos, or they get caught up in all sorts of things that aren't necessarily that productive, and they may have some idea and they feel like this is beyond me. So I want people to feel like, I want young people to get the idea that no, it's not beyond you. You can do it, and so that's what the story is about.
It's
about
hope.
Definitely.
From what you've seen, you feel that is something that maybe the younger generation has less of?
I don't know if they have less of it, because I've been around to a lot of schools dealing with the book, introducing the book to schools. I think there's more, there's hope at younger ages. I think I'm speaking of very amateur. This is not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But I would say that I found the kids from like infant 1 to maybe standard 3, standard 2, standard 3, were a lot more inquisitive, were a lot more hopeful, had a lot more ideas, more questions. And as they got older, somehow it got dampened, it seems like. But I don't think all is lost, because I know Yasser Musa very well, and he works in the high schools, and he's gotten his kids really enthusiastic and about history and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that that's the end of the world.
Yeah.
But for some kids, I think that the younger ages need this message so that it carries on as they get older. They don't. It doesn't get dampened or I don't want to say beaten out of them, because I don't mean physically, but pushed away, then pushed aside, sidetracked.
No, you're talking about
that's it.
something, and I'm glad we went there, because I think it is something that we've spoken about this show quite a bit. With children, we need to encourage them to dream.
Yes.
And dream big.
Yes.
And not become cynics at a very young age or jaded by what they see within society. And so that's a very important message. How do you impart that in a children's book? How do you take this message of there are endless opportunities? You can grow beyond your socioeconomic status, your parents that you had, the neighborhood you grow up in, the country in its developmental state. How do you impart that message?
Well, that's a big question. That's a big question, a very important question. So I have to take in kind of segments.
Okay.
And I would say, as a teacher myself, I teach young adults. Part of where the limitations come from is that we impose our own frameworks
On children.
on children, our own limitations.
Yes.
And we're not necessarily doing it in
To
a
harm
negative
them.
way to harm
Yeah.
them. It's just that's what we know.
a protective
right?
mechanism.
Or it's what we know.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, oh wow, this child wants to do something that I never thought of,
Yeah.
and maybe they can do it. And I'm not going to say, you know what, you can't be an astronaut because Belize doesn't have an aerospace program, for example.
Yeah.
That's an extreme example, but that's the kind of thing, right? So that's part of it. And so in the story, if you ask how do you do this in a story, in the story, while the parents and the parents in particular, and his uncle, there's an uncle in there, don't necessarily force him to build his own kite. When he decides he wants to do it, they're there to support him. Right? And that's what the story is saying.
So it's taking initiative and then having the supportive environment.
And that's the family. And then when it comes to schools, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I understood as a child, and I've said this many times when I went to All Saints, I understood from my parents that when I went to school, the teachers were my moral teaching guardians of my life, right? They were like my parents. And I think some of that is kind of lost. And it's not just the teacher's fault, sometimes the parents' fault. They don't want the teachers to say certain things to their kids. But we're going to have to, I don't want to make it sound like that. We need to work towards more of that idea where these are the people who are entrusted with guiding our children, and we have to, and the teachers have to be prepared to do that as well. Not just want to do it, but prepared to do it.
So tell us the process of putting together the book. This is, writing for children is hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing. I mean, we all were, it's for me, I had to think of, I was a child. I wasn't born this way. So I had to kind of go back to that. But we forget that. Adults, we forget that.
Yes,
course.
we
We forget.
We do.
We forget that we were
Of
children,
course. Born big.
right? Yeah, we're not born big, right?
Have a conversation with a teenager and you'll realize how much you've forgotten
Yes,
about being a
absolutely.
teenager.
So first you have to think about that. But the process was important, and that applies to any age group, right? Any age group. The two big things, the first thing is you have to get the idea out of your head and onto something. Either onto paper, you write it down, doesn't matter where, or into the computer, or into your tab, or into your phone, or wherever. Because nothing can be done with it in your head. And part of overcoming that part is that you can never, you can never put it out perfectly, right? You cannot wait until it's perfect in your head to put it out, or it will never come out.
It will never come out.
You have to put out what's there, even if it's just a fragment, even if it's a partial story. Okay, that's the first part, right? And that applies to a kid writing a poem in school.
Yeah.
It applies to an adult writing down a memory from a grandparent. It applies to author, anybody, right? Anybody.
That's a writer's number one challenge.
That's the one
Yeah.
challenge. The next big part of it is then letting it go. Is then saying,
I'm
I've
done.
written this and I'm going to let you read it and give me feedback.
Which is actually sharpening it.
Yes, but that's a very dangerous thing.
Why
if you
is it?
give it to the wrong person and the feedback is given in a way that stifles you, oh, that's not any good. Start again.
But how do you determine that person
Well,
is the wrong person?
that's the tricky part. And I have to say that I was very lucky with this book. I had Yasser, who is extremely talented. I have a friend in some friends that went to school with me that I know very well, that I knew would give me, that have been supportive generally in my adult life, and I knew would give me feedback that would be useful.
Yeah.
So that's a very delicate process. But if you give it to the wrong person,
Yeah.
when I say the wrong person, you give it to the person who gives you something that is not constructive.
Or
you
who
have to be
doesn't understand
or
your
doesn't understand
motive.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to be strong enough to say,
Thank
you
you.
know what, thank you, but I really believe in this. And to yourself, you're saying this, of course. You say thank you,
You
but
can
to
say
yourself,
to
you
them,
say,
too.
I
Remember
really
we're talking
believe
about
in
being
this,
brave? Yeah.
and I'll pass it on to I'll give it to somebody else.
But Harold, how do you determine, because one of the things that we tend to get complacent with is people telling us what we want to hear. And this happened many a times. So how do you determine these things? Because it's a good book, and I actually found the part that I want to read in a few. But how do you determine these things, especially having the supporting cast, and then again having those who would criticize and then say, but this is what we should work along with?
Yeah. There's no magic pill. I can't give you an absolute answer to that. I'm just saying you have to know the person and know somebody who knows something about it. So like Yasser, for example, I keep using his name.
Yasser.
No, because he's been very instrumental in getting this done. And then the other part is collaboration, which is Marvin Vernon, who does
Yes.
the illustrations,
Yes.
right?
That's what I wanted to
We can
talk.
get to that in a moment. And I learned something from this book is that there are artists who are not illustrators, right? So when I met with him, he got the text. I met with him once, and when he sent back the first frames, I was like, oh
Wow.
my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, a little tweaking here or there,
Yeah.
but he just captured it, right?
Yeah.
So extremely talented young man. This is, I think it's his second book. He did Rowan Garrell's book,
Okay.
Okay.
which is also inspirational and very good book.
Yeah.
And so he's extremely talented and young, and so we have it in Belize. You know, I didn't have to go
Yeah, we
abroad
do.
to get that.
We do.
So there are two things I would imagine in finalizing the book that you needed to take into consideration. One is your audience. Well, actually, both issues are regarding your audience. One, is it authentically Belizean, other than having a Belizean writer and illustrator? And also, is it child friendly? Because as adults, we write as adults, even when we write in children's language.
Right.
So how did you overcome those two areas? How do you make sure it's Belizean?
Yeah.
And also that it is something that is that a child can read and will enjoy reading.
Well, let me deal with the second part first, which
Yeah.
is the part about the children. The book is designed to be read to a child who necessarily may not be able to read or not at that level yet, but also progress into reading the story him or
Themselves.
herself. So it has that kind of language. So it's childlike but not childish.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So it's
Yes, it
written
does.
to
Yes,
be
it
a
does.
read aloud book.
read aloud book and for a child to advance their reading skills.
So you can change your voices
You
to,
can change
to
your
emulate different
voices.
people. Yeah.
Right.
Did you
I like
test
that.
it out with children?
I did, Yasser did it with some of his kids,
Yeah, yeah.
his nephews and nieces, to get the tone was right.
Yeah.
But it's designed to be read aloud to a child who is not at that reading level, and it's also for a child to be able to read it and develop their reading skills.
Okay.
That's the
So
first
look at
part.
that.
Yeah.
So
That's the
this
second
is
part. So the first part was
Belizean.
Belizean, right. So I had to walk a fine line because I didn't want the book to be pigeonholed to only Belize, where only Belizeans would appreciate the book. I wanted to make it a broader audience.
Okay.
So the Belizean flavor is really the kite.
The kite and the march.
Yes.
Yes.
The Kites and March ones is really a ode to Belize. And if you look at when you get to the back, you'll see there's a little glossary of sorts,
Yeah.
which has
Of
the
the different
major
types of
kites of
kites.
Belize.
Yeah.
But
We're
the
gonna get
story
there.
itself is broader, it's for a broader audience.
But even the names that you selected,
And
those
the
are
names,
variations
yes,
in-
were tried. I picked, somebody asked me where I got Keron from. I picked Keron
In
because
Belize, we say Keron.
Keron. Keron, right? Well, the point is that I don't know anybody by that name.
Ah,
Really?
And that's why I picked it, because I didn't want anybody to feel I was picking their child's name to use in the book.
because everybody else.
Everybody would say, "Oh, this is my child," right? So, and just to give you a simple thing that was edited in it, when I first wrote it, I wrote his name as Kieron,
Keron.
and somebody read it and said, it's a little too complicated. I and E doesn't really read well, so drop the I and just go Keron.
Keep it 2000
Yeah.
or 2010.
Yeah,
over.
just keep it to Keron. So that's something simple that a person who has your best interest at heart,
Yeah.
who understands, then gives you that sort of advice.
All right. So there's one particular part in there that I want to.
He'll read it.
Yeah.
But I want
I'll
to just
read it.
ask one more thing about
Yeah.
Marvin. So Marvin did your illustrations.
Yes.
He sent you the first draft. I think obviously you wanted to. You had a particular look in mind. And how do you ensure, or how do you work with your illustrator to make sure that your vision when you're writing is also encapsulated in the book?
Well, let's talk about the process. This is all computer generated.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all computer generated. It looks like it's painted, but it's actually computer generated.
Nice.
So the first thing they do is they send a series of palettes that have different styles. And then I pick one. So I picked this style. And then we talked about what the kids should look like. It should look sort of representative. We want it to look modern, but not too trendy.
Yeah.
So he has a kind of kid and play with kid and play
He has a
haircut,
kid. Yeah, that's
right?
a kid. That's a kid
A little
cut.
kid and play. No,
Yeah.
kid and play. Do you know kid and play?
I know
Yes.
Kid and Play.
Okay. So he has a
90s
kind
hits.
of kind of kid and play haircut.
The high top.
Yeah, the high top. So it gives a kind of like an Afro-ish thing, which is kind of modern, or maybe throwback as well, but coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the kind of cut in the head. So that's the kind of thing that we wanted to
love it.
little cut
All
in his-
the details.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we worked on.
And
Yes.
the mango tree, I thought
And
that
then
was
the
cool.
mango tree, yes. I get in the coloring. So if you notice, the main kite, for example, is yellow, right? That's his main kite. And for me, I love the color yellow. And so for me, that was kind of like the sun, and the sun rising, hope, a new day sort of imagery coming across. And so that's the kind of thing we talked about, what we wanted. And if you notice on one of the pages, he actually has like a great, which is one of the most impressive pages, I think. Well, this one, but more the kid one with his brother, where he actually is able to capture movement. This one, where he's actually able to capture his brother's face, the movement of the curtains coming in,
And the
that's
wind
kind of
actually.
touching the kite,
Yeah.
and then his expression, and so you get a whole lot of like motion and movement and imagery coming out of these two pages.
There's so much to the mind in this
Yes,
particular page.
so that's a real, to me, it's one of
Yeah.
his best pages.
But I want.
What's the age group that you're targeting?
2 to 8.
2 to 8.
So a kid who will listen and look at the colors and understand
Yeah.
and appreciate the colors and
This particular part, that stuck out to me,
okay.
and
Yeah.
we would like for you to read
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Let's
let
have
me
the
see.
author read
Yeah,
aloud.
offer read aloud.
Yes.
Yeah. As he happily flies today, Keron realizes that he holds his tomorrow in his hands. Every day is a new tomorrow, and he can do anything he wants to today and every day.
The reason why that stuck out to me was because it reminded me of the eye opener
Yeah.
for this morning. That every day you've got your tomorrow in your hand.
That's right.
This is the reason why I chose
Yes,
that.
that's perfect.
That's your message.
That's the message. Yeah.
How long did it take you to draft that it's one sentence?
It was two. It's two sentences.
It's
sentences,
two?
Okay,
yeah.
so this didn't, the part of this that was, the biggest part of this that was edited was the idea of him naming the kite today. Initially, first of all, the kite did not have a name. Then it was named tomorrow. Then it became today. Because that symbolized him holding on to today,
Yeah.
right? and he was flying today, which says all sorts of things.
his
So,
smart, yeah.
so that actually says a lot about like the editing process and like people contributing to it,
Yeah.
and saying, well, how do you encapsulate this, not just in him flying, but in the actual language? And you can say, well, he named the kite today, which means he's holding on to today
Yes.
as he flies
I
his kite.
love
I
it.
love it too.
Right.
I love
So,
So-
and then his friends join him.
Yeah.
And
What's
they
your
do it.
favorite part? What do you feel most proud of?
I really like the idea of him challenging himself to capture the day. So he tries and fails. He says, I'm going to stay up all night and I'm going to capture tomorrow, right? I'm going to capture today. And he fails and he says, okay, well, I'll try something else. And he asks his mom to wake him up. And so that's how he does
Before
it.
the
So that idea that I can try, I'll try, and then if I don't succeed, I'll try another way.
Yeah.
And to achieve what you want.
So two final points. One, it is generating funds towards All Saints School. I
Yes,
saw
All
that.
Saints Foundation.
All Saints Foundation.
Alumni Foundation.
Okay. So this is to offer scholarships, assistance
That's
to the
no,
school.
it's not. We actually do this.
Yeah.
The 4 members from the class of 75, a long
It's
time
in
ago.
the book.
Yeah. Found this foundation a few years ago to support young people deserving. So we don't pick the best student, the top PSC finisher, because that person or those top finishers usually get scholarships.
Scholarships,
anyway.
yes.
So we're looking for somebody who has good grades, but deserving.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we're going for that sweet spot right in there.
All right.
And we have a graduate. We already had a graduate from Polity, so we have a successful graduate. We have somebody in EP York right now, and we're giving out a scholarship in August.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And then last thing I want to say is that we actually have made the kites that are here that are going to be at the launch.
Yeah.
Big 3-foot tall kites.
So
I made 3 of the 4 myself personally.
you really wanted to tap into your childhood
Yes.
experiences. So the books are $20 and
Donation.
and you can get them at the launch,
At the launch,
this Friday.
and if you can't make the launch, the manufactured bookstore has them
Okay.
as well.
Lovely.
So there's a 10 o'clock launch
Yes.
and a 6 p.m. launch.
Yes. So the 10 o'clock one is a more formal launch. We'll have a couple of speeches. 1 hour. We'll have some kids read the book from All Saints. They're from All Saints. They'll read the book. And then a couple of speeches, thank yous and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then in the evening will be more social. I'll sign books as well, both times. And the evening will be more social for those who can't make it at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it'll be
So-
6 o'clock at Balamari restaurant on Seashore.
Beautiful.
Okay. And is this the first in a series or the one and only?
It's not the first. I don't think that there may be a series, but I am working on another book with it, which is going to be a mythology.
Okay.
It's going to be a mythology, something I've created, totally new mythology.
All right.
Okay. Well, we'll
Not
look forward to that.
not Tata
You said
Duhende, not
We
any
do
of
need to
those.
teach Tata Duenda.
Yeah,
A
no,
lot
we
of
do,
kids
we
don't
do,
know.
we do,
Yeah.
we do. But I made up a whole new,
Okay, a new generation.
well, one character, but a whole new story.
Well, we will look forward to that. Harold, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming in
Thank you.
and telling us about your venture into children's book.
Yes.
Into writing for children, I should say. And once again, if you want a copy of the book, you can definitely participate in the launch on Friday at 10 a.m. Or join Harold and the rest of his supporting team at 6 p.m. at Bellamari in Belize City. And the books are $20 as a donation towards the All Saints Alumni Foundation.
Yes, and we are rolling out these books to every elementary school in Belize. Will get at least 2 copies of this book in the next year.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a break now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of Digicel Belize to tell us about their July promotions. So stay tuned.